All right. Hey, what's happening? Ward Wrestling Live. It's the 4 o'clock hour here. And I am very blessed and honored to have another, amazing, well-known man in our community, especially in the wrestling world, that everybody's seen his movie Vision Quest, where he played Brian Shute back in 1985. I don't know if anybody knows this. He is a black belt in Aikido. He did wrestle for 4 years in high school. That was something he did. He was and he actually he played tennis where he was offered a scholarship to North Idaho, if you didn't know that. And then he went off to Eastern Washington. So we have him today. You guys know him as Brian Shute, but his real name is Frank Jasper. How are you, sir?
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good, man. Hey, thanks so much for coming on. Again, he's in California. So what's afternoon to us is morning to him. And thanks so much for coming on. Pretty cool. I got an opportunity to finally watch your movie about 2 months ago. I started this show. I told you the story, and it was super cool with you and Swain and the whole leading up to the big fight. It was fun to watch and a funny story. And you can tell it. I know that it was kind of opposite of what was really happening in real life, right?
Yeah. So when I got cast in the movie, I was weighing 215 pounds. And so the director asked me to drop some weight so you'd be closer to Matthew's weight. And they didn't even really give me a number, but when I read the script and it said 168 pounds, I'm like, that's not going to happen, but I'll just rip down as hard as I can and get down as close as I can to Matthew. And so I ended up dropping 25 pounds in 2.5 weeks. My actual weight for the movie was about 189 pounds. And I was at a 4% body weight that we did in a human performance lab. So we did a dunk test. And so I was just the lowest body percentage fat I've ever been and probably will ever be.
So that's interesting. So the whole theme of the movie, and it was opposite for the actors.
Yeah, everything Matthew was dealing with in the movie and I was dealing with in real life. I was in a lot of pain. My muscles were catabolizing. I was lightheaded. At one point in the filming, I got elbowed and I had to get bloody nose and it wouldn't stop. So I actually had to have it cauterized so we can continue filming. And so it's just like, it's so interesting that his character and mine were just opposite outside of the movie itself.
And the directors knew what was going on, right?
Well, the director was the one that asked me to cut weight to get down to the right side, to be close to Matthew's weight. But yeah, I mean, it was just an incredible experience, I have to say. Anybody that was a part of it, anybody that it's continued for 35 years. So we're into about the 4th generation of wrestlers, and I'm still surprised. I go do appearances. And it's just interesting to see who's comes up to me, and it's usually the kids that are now watching it on the way to the tournaments because they have these DVDs that they can pop in, and they're the big rigs that they're taking to these events. And the parents, this is usually the parents' time frame, meaning that they were in the 80s. It's like their movie, it's their music, but they want their kids to see it. So
when you see the cover, you think it's Footloose.
Oh, so here's a little funny one. So I don't know if you know this, but Madonna, it was her very first exposure. It was her very first film that she was in. She was a singer in the bar in the movie, and she sang Crazy for You. And so it was, by the time the movie got finished, because it took them almost a year, she was very famous by then. Her career took off. So now when the film gets released in Europe, it's not even called Vision Quest. It's called Crazy for You.
Really?
Starring Madonna.
So man, I wonder if anybody out there has that DVD.
I actually have a poster. A guy gave me a poster. And so here's the other very interesting thing. It says, Loudon Swain is torn between the 5'2" brunette and the 6'4" wrestler that he has to defeat. And so it's like, oh man, like I'm big in Europe, man. I'm 6'4".
Yeah. Yeah, and man, it's too bad, man, you could have hooked up with Madonna back then.
I was never on the set when she filmed, but she's definitely a Shute kind of girlfriend, I have to say.
It's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, so and you weren't even, I mean, I know you wrestled in high school, but your first love was tennis, right?
Well, yeah, I ended up getting a scholarship after I graduated to North Idaho College, and I was there for a semester, but then I left and I became an iron worker. And then I got into bodybuilding. So then bodybuilding became my next. I have a bit of an addicted personality. And so the Shute character is really a reflection of my aggression when I get into some kind of physical activity. And so for me at that point, it was weights, it was bodybuilding. And so I was a martial artist, as you said, you mentioned I was a black belt in Aikido, and I studied martial arts throughout my entire life. And so I was into that for a period of time, and then bodybuilding was big. And then when I got the movie, I had to drop all that weight that I had and shoot the movie.
No pun intended. And it's interesting because you went from maybe I'll do this. You ended up doing some iron work, right, for a couple years, and then you end up, I guess the iron worker thing kind of just, they closed it, so there was no more work for you. So you're kind of hanging out, and I guess the story goes they had a guy at Eastern Michigan that needed a drill partner. You're like, well, I guess I'll go back to school, and you end up at Eastern Michigan now. You're studying to be an athletic trainer, and you end up the wrestling team trainer while you're there. And talk about that. You end up with a guy that's 190, doesn't have a partner.
So just so you know, it's Eastern Washington University. That's in Cheney, Washington, just outside of Spokane. And Spokane is where they shot the movie. And before I got to Eastern, I was working as an iron worker, and there was a shutdown of the nuclear reactor sites that we were working on. So I wasn't working at the time, and my friend of mine was wrestling at Pasco College, and he weighed 192 pounds, like you mentioned. And so he had nobody his weight to train with. So I went and trained with the team for that season. And he ended up winning the national title at 192. So he did really great. And I just loved it. I just loved getting back into the gym or back onto the mat, and then having that camaraderie and training with these guys. And I didn't push myself like he pushed himself, but because he was go all in, and he was just, he was cranking. And man, when it came time for the tournament, he was ready. So, I mean, I was just happy to be a part of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just to be in the room, be back on the mat, be with the team. And I'm sure he was very thankful to have you as a drill partner.
Yeah, he was a good, he was just a great kid. He grew up in outside of Coeur d'Alene, but he went to Coeur d'Alene High School, and he was just a big country kid. He had lots of strength, and he was just determined. And off to the side, we would go, and I would hang out with him where he was working, and we'd play backgammon. So we'd be playing these great games of backgammon all day, and then we'd wrestle when we had practice as well. So we kind of hung out together for a while, but just a great kid, man.
That seems fun. And then I'm guessing you became an athletic trainer from there, and then went on and did what you're doing now. But I know, and we'll get into your real job now. But I know that you kind of run around, and I don't know if it's nationally or just on the West Coast, but you can talk about it. You do some events still where you can meet Frank. And how do we find when those events are? Obviously, right now they're affected, but when they aren't affected.
So I'm on Facebook, and I have just an Instagram that you can, look for me, and you can just sign up and friend me on Facebook. So I try and post things there, and I'm just getting used to kind of being more in the Instagram world. That's where most of the kids are hanging out. But for my business, it's pretty much Facebook, and I'll be booked to do appearances, and I'm across the country, man. I was my very first one, I went and did an appearance at in New York City, and it was a big fundraiser. And they actually created a beautiful place in Libby Square, and it was a Russian national wrestling team against the American national wrestling team. And it had been almost 30 years since Vision Quest had been released. And it was the first time that I had seen Matthew Modine since the movie. And we sat on the edge of this mat watching these just fantastic, you know, the top wrestlers in the world really wrestle, and just caught up. And it was just one of those great experiences to be in New York City and have that and see all the things on all of the billboards and stuff like this that are around the Libby Square were being lit up with Vision Quest photo, you know, filmage. And it was just a really great experience. And so I actually started doing appearances across the country. I'm just trying to find a way to keep promoting wrestling. And what I want to leave with, you know, when I kind of walk away, is that I want to be the person that brought into wrestling, one of the people that's brought into wrestling, this understanding about how to drop weight in a healthy way. And so wherever I go, I talk to the kids about how to eat a healthy diet, not starve yourself, how not to have to dehydrate in order to make weight, and then not to have to over exercise to drop more weight right before a tournament. It's like we should have the weight down where it should be. You should be stabilized. You shouldn't be yo-yoing throughout the whole season. You need to be stabilized at the weight you're going to wrestle at 2 weeks before you actually have a match. And you should take your time doing that. You should start 2 months out, and you should start taking out all what I call the white foods, the white sugar, the white flour, the white potatoes, you know, the sugars, cakes, candies, crackers, although it has to kind of like go to the side. And now you need to start fueling the body. You need to feed it. You need to give it energy. You need to give it energy, you know, nutrients to actually build the tissue and regenerate. And so you're ready when it comes time to wrestle a match or to wrestle 3 matches in a day. So you can't do that when you have, you've cut your calories down and you've dehydrated. The fastest way to lose endurance is by not being hydrated. And the other piece of that picture is like the things that you can control, that's what you need to control. And that's going to be diet, and that's going to be hydration, and then it's also going to be sleep. Sleep isn't talked about very much, but you need to get the 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. There's things that happen that prep you, that you integrate everything you learned that day. It sets you up to actually be able to take in new information, store it, remember it, utilize it. It also releases during a deep part of the sleep, your brain actually has no lymphatic system. And so there's a chemical that's released during the deep part of your sleep that shrinks all the cells and lets a cerebral spinal fluid flush through the brain and clear out all the toxins. So you don't build up toxins in your brain. And so these are key things that if you're not doing, you're not preparing yourself to be the best athlete on the mat that you can be.
And that's awesome because I don't have the health background you do, because I like to eat hamburgers and French fries, and I got to not do that. But but one of our similar goals is, the reason I started this show was I I want to be one of those voices too. So I'm right there with you. I just, in my short 2 years, I've been around so many people and seen so many success stories, and now I'm a part of it, and this is awesome. And and obviously that has always been a huge love of yours and a passion of yours. And I know you went on to start Ahsani Holistic Healthcare, which I know we'll talk about. Before we talk about that, you do have some Brian Shute shirts that you do. You got your shuteshirts.com, which you can post in the room and put on the comments when you get off. But how'd that come about, and how's it doing? How many options are there?
So right around the 30th anniversary, people started asking to get, I had totally just stepped away from the wrestling community. I was just doing my Ahsani Holistic Healthcare. It takes years. I took, after almost 3 years at Eastern, and I had 4,000 hours in the athletic training room. I had completed all my, Western sciences, my chemistry and anatomy and physiology, kinesiology, all those courses were done. And I still took me almost 5 years to complete and get a master's degree in Oriental medicine. And so
Interesting.
then I started to practice. What, you had a question? Go ahead.
No, I said interesting.
Yeah.
Oriental medicine.
Yeah, so I have a master's degree, and then we started to practice. So my wife and I have a clinic that's been in the same place since 1995. And so that's where I placed my focus. And then Vision Quest had a 30th year anniversary. And so they did a showing, and then there were several interviews and live interview requests. And then I was asked to help promote World Cup because they were holding the World Cup here in Los Angeles. And so my wife and I were thinking like, okay, well, we're going to be there. I don't want to just be standing around. We should sell something. So we came up with these 2 t-shirts from the movie. I've kind of like altered them and kind of made them more grainy. And I did a real contrast with one of the shirts. And so that's where it started. It was there at the World Cup when we were trying to help promote it out here on the West Coast.
That's awesome. And now people are walking around with you on their belly.
And I've got photos. Actually, I've partnered up with Supreme Singlets, and they created a backpack. There's a killer backpack. I've got it right next to me because I use it every day. Singlets. I have, what else do I have on there? Well, just like I said, the photos, the singlets, the backpacks. I should be getting a hoodie. That's the next thing I'm working on, which I'm working on with 3X Gear. That's another company that I work with out of Fargo. So
Nice. Awesome. Well, yeah, please feel free to go into my page and put it in the comments after this, and the little group I started, feel free to post your links in there and share it. And then talk about interesting, and I know the movie.
yeah.
Obviously, I'm sure everybody knows it and knows the story, but so I guess the cool story about how it just happened by mistake, and then how you actually had to really do a wrestle off to win the job. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I just happened to be the athletic trainer for the wrestling team that semester, and one of the wrestlers that was already in the movie was a wrestler at Eastern and took the semester off so he could be in the movie. He came in to watch the wrestling practice, and we were sitting there, and he was telling me all about, hey, this movie I'm doing, it's a wrestling movie, and hey, they're paying me to wrestle, and it's really cool. And he says, they're still looking for somebody, a 6 foot tall, I had blonde hair at the time, blonde hair, blue eyes, muscular build that can wrestle. And he goes, that's you. And so I was not convinced, of course. And, but I also was paying for my own education. And so I thought, well, okay, great. I'll go check it out. If I can be in a movie, I'll be an extra in the background. I'll get some money to pay for my education, and I'll get to see how a movie gets made. That was my thought as I went in for my first audition. And when I walked in there, the casting director goes, here, and handed me sides. And sides are, that's the dialogue that you use in a scene. So those are called sides. And I had no idea I was actually going to speak in this movie. And so that was the beginning. And I was kind of shocked then. Then I had to then go wrestle for the coach, because the coach was the head of Coach Cash Stone, who was the referee in the final scene, the final match between Matthew and I.
Okay.
He was also overseeing all the wrestlers. And so he had to sign off and make sure that I could wrestle and do the job that they wanted me to do. So then I had to wrestle, and then I met with the producer or the director again. And then I had to do the scene. This is like 3-4 weeks down this way here. So I had to do the scene for producers and directors who were flying in from Los Angeles. And they brought a guy from LA that they liked, and the director liked me. So I did the scene, and then we went over to where they were shooting. They had a mat out, and that's where we had this wrestle off to see which one they were going to pick. So we went back and forth with moves, hits, and takedowns, and duck unders, and firemen's, and things like this, until he said, okay, Cash Stone said, this guy can wrestle. So it's up to the producer to decide who's going to be the choice. And I actually got picked, luckily. And so the next is the history, I guess.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And then, and years later, you get a DVD from a policeman that reached out and Now you have your own copy, and that's probably the second time you watched the whole thing, right?
Yeah, I watched the premiere and then I hadn't seen it. And then this big, just a husky guy from North Carolina, and he's a SWAT and a policeman and a SWAT person, and he came out to visit. And he came to the office, and we took pictures. And he says, do you have a DVD of Vision Quest? And I said, I actually don't own one. And so he just says, well, that's not okay. So when he got back, he ended up sending me one, and he actually sent me two, and I signed one and returned it. And I've stayed in touch with him, and he's just recently retired. And so he's always good for a laugh. He's a good time guy, and it's interesting how you build relationships through Vision Quest, through Facebook, and the ones that stick and the ones that don't, and
Sure.
there's some I've met some just real, as you have too, as you mentioned, I'm just meeting such quality people along the way in the wrestling community, and they call it a brotherhood. And the fact that I've been accepted in, and I'm part of the culture, it means a lot to me.
Yeah, and I tell a lot of these guys, I can't wait till I can actually get in my truck and drive around to these different places around the country, or fly and actually get to walk in and say thank you for coming on, and just I'm honored to talk to everybody. I say this all the time, that everybody I talk to is a big name, because everybody I talk to has a purpose for this sport, and so do you. I got a gentleman, Brent Branson, just said, Shute predicted my son Bo would make it to state his sophomore year. He was right. And many, many wrestlers have great Frank stories. He's a great man.
Yeah, it's a great community. Everywhere I go, I just feel they just take you in, and they just take care of you as well. I had a great. Go ahead.
George Civilian is like, Shute's the man. Charlie Morgan, what a classic. Biology, love it. Bud Hennenball, good stuff. Vision Quest is the greatest. Thanks for having Frank on today. So Scotty Sentes, awesome. So obviously everybody's a fan. I didn't mean, sometimes I have a delay, so if I talked over you, I apologize. Go ahead.
Yeah, not at all. It's like, wow. I mean, there's just so many great experiences where people have taken me in. There's like when I go to there was an event, and I did just last year, at the end of the year, before everything got just stopped. And that was, I went to Arizona. I was on the reservation, and I did an appearance there. And man, it's like, everyone from the kids all the way up through the coaches, through the parents, they were connected. They loved my character. They loved the movie. And so I was really accepted in, and like the women over the hospitality would come over and drag me in there, and they would feed me the Navajo tacos. And I said, it's a good thing I didn't stay there much more than 2 or 3 days, because I think I put on some weight. I wouldn't make the weight then,
That's funny. And that's got to be cool. Another George Civilian. I have his shirt and a signed autograph of him. He is part of my wrestling shrine.
Yeah, he makes that shirt look good, man. He was styling it the other day, and it's looking like he's got these cool glasses on, a headband, and he's rocking the shirt, and he's just makes it look a little bit tougher.
He's a good dude. Hey, so obviously your day job is Ahsani Holistic Healthcare in California. Tell us about it. I know Ahsani means love, right?
Yeah, interesting. So Ahsani means love in Pygmy. It sounds very Asian, and that's why we chose it. But also, my wife knew a guy named Jean-Pierre Allais, who was the first white man to go into Congo and be seen by Pygmies at that time. And so he started the Pygmy Foundation because he wanted to protect them, because everything was encroaching on their property and on their land. And so he was really trying to help them. But in their language, Ahsani means love. And so we believe in a holistic approach to people, and that it starts with that love and that care of love for themselves and just love for those around them, and to take care of their nutrition and their sleeping and their lifestyle. That's a loving thing to do for you, for yourself and for others. So we ended up using this name, and it sounds very Asian, so it kind of fits in with my acupuncture acumen, and I do a lot of other things along with that. I do craniosacral and some of the things you mentioned. I'm a master of Reiki, and I have a certification in fascial muscle taping, and I do Schulman therapy, which is a fascial release technique. So I combine all this into supporting the person and really kind of build them up from ground zero, to kind of fill in any of the little places where they're suffering and where their nutrition isn't really up to par.
And very cool. And now you've got a Nutra business, right?
A Nutra business. I'm not clear with that one.
Or is that natural? Maybe I got Butch Hildenbrand. He's asked about his Nutra business, but I think maybe he means natural business.
Well, okay, so
And the
I
product
do nutritional counseling, and I do distance work. So if anybody needs to have nutrition and consultation, and for me to go through all their systems and find out where they need to be supported, I do that via phone. I also have another product that I'm using personally that is that's a one of a kind, over the counter transdermal HGH support. And so that's one he might be referring to.
Yeah, he said yes, that. He just messaged yes, that.
That stuff.
Yeah.
No, I've been doing that for over a year, and bam, it's like as you age, your HGH starts to track downward, and that really kind of supports your tendons and ligaments, and really keeps your tone and keeps your muscles, toned as well, but your skin from going crepey. And I've noticed some things since I've been on it over a year, that an old injury I had when I was bodybuilding, I was squatting way too much weight, trying to prove something to myself. I tore patella tendon, I tore the anterior cruciate. And so I've always struggled with this. And it's been recently, after I've been on Somaderm for over a year, that there's been an improvement in the actual joint itself and in the tendons and ligaments within, that's protecting it. And I was like, wow, I'm impressed. And I'm a big believer in, it's not just one big thing. It's a lot of little things that you do consistently over time that then make a difference, or those things that you do that are not good for you, that you do for long periods over time, that break you down eventually. So if I was going to say something to you, I would say, yes, I want you to have the burger. I don't want you to have the bun. I don't want you to have the fries. I want you to do a grass-fed burger. I want you to put it on a plate, a bed of lettuce. And if you have to have fries, and to make it a sweet potato fries. Okay.
I like
So
that.
then you're eating to build and support, and you're not taking in as many trans fats. You're not taking in gluten. That's a pro-inflammatory food as well.
Man, that's awesome. All right, well, I got my 10 questions ready for you. You ready to do it?
All right, man.
All right, so I got high anxiety, so really bad high anxiety. So do I go Adrenocalm or Stresszyme?
You may need both. So if your adrenals are just completely wiped out, then you're going to need something to build that up and get you out of sympathetic dominance, and that's Drenamine. And Stresszyme will also get you out of that, and that's more of an herbal support. And so sometimes if somebody is really struggling and really high anxiety, I put them on both.
Nice. So this day and age, we got some stuff going around, cold and flu. I'm feeling kind of sick. Do I grab the Reboost or the Virex? This is all, by the way, this is all on his website.
Yeah. So 4 things you want to make sure you got going on in your system. And that's magnesium. Make sure your magnesium levels, we have a tendency to be deficient in magnesium for some reason here in the United States. Vitamin C, vitamin D is really important. So you better get your vitamin D levels at the optimum levels, and zinc. So those are the things that are the basics that you want to have covered, and you should be able to go find those just about in any store. I, however, prefer to have quality over quantity. So make sure you get quality products.
So do I go with, on your site, do I grab the Reboost or the Virex?
So it depends on what's going on, but more likely the Reboost, because there's two types of Reboost, one for immune and the other one is for flu and cold. So here's the deal. Reboost Immune is a homeopathic. Stress Zyme or is a herbal. And so so you want to stack these different things. They have different energies that they enter into the body. Okay. So you're going to want an energetic source, an herbal source, and a nutritional source. And when you combine those, then you've got the best coverage of all.
Awesome. Awesome. That's really good. And I think there's like your vitamin and mineral or something. Maybe it's up, maybe it's down, but I was looking on your site because you have some great products on your site.
Yeah.
And I was kind of torn. I didn't know if I wanted to go with the B12 liquid or the D3 liquid.
So D3 is your vitamin D3, which is awesome for your immune system. And it has over 20,000 other reactions in along with hormones. So it's more than just a vitamin. It's almost a hormone. So, you know, that one's going to be a really important one to have in your system. And some of the things that came out of China was that they noticed that the people that were dying from COVID-19, the people that suffered from the effects and didn't recover fast, were either deficient or had insufficient amounts of vitamin D3 in their system. And the reason I say D3 is because there's other vitamin Ds out there, but D3 seems to be a more efficient and a better active and better quality vitamin.
Awesome. I love it. And I, you know, as we get older, we kind of lose our mind. I mean, our brain just kind of goes. I can't remember yesterday. And I was on your site again, and I'm looking, and I'm torn between the coconut oil or the Accelaflow.
So the Acetoflow is fantastic, and so I would actually combine these as well. So here's what I do: I cook with coconut oil almost every day. So that is a great support because that is a healthy fat. It's an essential fatty acid that your brain needs to have those, the myelin sheath in the brain that covers your nerves. So the nerve impulse goes down, your nerve pathways, it has to go along the myelin sheath. And if that's burnt off, it doesn't work properly. So it's a key ingredient to keeping your brain strong. They've actually had some people that were struggling with dementia. They put a couple tablespoons of coconut oil in their oatmeal and notice a change pretty immediately. So even if you have problems, you can actually support it and maybe fix that to some degree. And it's I'm always a big believer in preventative. So I'm looking, like you said, it's like, man, I want to make sure my brain is functioning properly.
Absolutely.
So absolutely. And Acetoflow is just another nutrient that your brain needs. And so if you're deficient in it, then it should be also included.
Nice. And a little lethargic, energy's down. I'm on that Ahsani kick. I'm on the website, and I click the energy button in the store. It's pretty cool. And I see, and I can't pronounce it too well, but I see like the Quinton Hypertonic.
Oh yeah.
Or that Neo 40.
Oh yeah. So both of those are really unique products. The ketone is a marine-based plasma. They go out into these plankton blooms in the ocean where it's pristine, and they draw this up. And what it has is complete minerals that are balanced, because if you have just one mineral, you need the complementary mineral in order to utilize it properly. So it has all 32 of these minerals balanced, and it's in a bioavailable form. And then it's just a great recovery, and it's a great pre-performance product. And they've given it to amateur cyclists, and they took 2 before and 2 after, and their speed increased, their ability to climb mountains improved, and their recovery improved. And so it's this very cool little product that not too many people know about. And it's interesting you brought that up. And then the Neo 40 is just about trying to kick up your nitric balance or your nitric oxide in the body. And so it opens up circulation. It sets you up for preparation for working out as well. It actually lowers blood pressure is one of the other things that it has. So they're very unique little products that you can use.
Yeah, and we have more. And Dustin McDonald just asked for a link to the site on the comments. So he'll put a link on there, Dustin, as soon as we get done here. In the meantime, my immune system is kind of not functioning right. So I was there too, and I saw that you do interesting. Like, do I go matcha or olive leaf? And I'm like, I like olives. I like tea. I like both. I don't know, but
yeah. So each one has a purpose, and maca is really going to support you, and it'll give you energy pretty quickly. It's a kind of a testosterone boost, perhaps as well. An olive leaf is a great immune support to help shore up your immune system and help against bacteria and viruses.
Awesome. And there was a fungicide or a tea relief kind of fungicide or tea relief, and I wasn't too sure the direction to go there. Yeah.
So systemically, we have a tendency in out here in California, I think, especially because there's a lot of salt water and people are sweating. And if you work out, if you train, you have a tendency to get sweaty feet and sweaty things. And so there's a potential to have fungus build up either in your shoes or even in your system. And so that's what fungicide is best for. And I don't know if you've ever seen these little spots in the orange where they lose the pigment. And that's usually a cell fungus. It's just like a hair follicle fungus. And so fungicide is one of the things I use to clear that up. And it's a systemic issue. They call it surfer's skin, because it gets all gungy because of that. And so that's what that is about. What was the other one you mentioned? Fungicide and what the?
Tea relief.
Oh, tea relief. Tea relief is my topical that I use. It's a homeopathic. It's for strains, sprains, and bruises. And we always take that with us when we're traveling. And it modulates any kind of inflammation in the body. It doesn't cover it up. It doesn't get hot, it doesn't get cold, but it has bryonia, rust tox, arnica montana, and a lot of other products in there in the homeopathic solution. So it's just through constant use, it just clears it. And pretty soon you're just like, wow, I don't have any pain in my neck, or I don't have any soreness and it's done.
That's awesome. So let's see, what else do I have here? I got a little, cholesterol issues. On the Ahsani site, you can find some really cool things to help your cholesterol. They have this Cholestar RF or the Cholestar Pure. Yep. Not sure what is what, and which way do I go?
So when you start thinking about cholesterol, we have to be careful about what's been thought of in the past, and that the programming that we've been given this is a bit of a jump, and so I'll try and make it quick. But originally, the man that came out with this concept that cholesterol is bad did this test, did the study with rabbits. And so when they went back to redo that to see if it was actually to see how well he did his test, they found it was completely inaccurate, because it wasn't cholesterol that was causing the cardiovascular disease. It was the trans fats that he combined with the cholesterol. So what happens is when you combine cholesterol and trans fats, you create a thing called oxidation. Oxidation oxidizes cholesterol, starts to clog up in your arteries, then you'll get cardiovascular disease. So we completely are focusing on the wrong thing. We're focusing on cholesterol when we should be focusing on trans fats. That's why I don't want you to have, French fries, because that's trans fats. And so that's going to cause oxidations in your system, and it will start to cause sluggish blood, and then you'll get a blockage. So I do have a product though, that if you want to lower your cholesterol levels safely without impacting your liver, because statins will also have a strain on the liver, and they also block some of your ability to take oxygen on your red blood cells. So the best ways to do it is a natural way, of course. And so that's why I carry Cholesterol and the other choice as well, Cholesterol Plus. So if they depends on which one you test for. I try and keep a couple different products that do the same thing, because you might test for it, but then the next patient that comes in doesn't test for it. Everybody's chemistry is different, and everybody reacts differently to a nutrient, a treatment, a thought form. So you have to have other choices.
That's cool. One of the gentlemen I had on, his name is Butch Hildebrand, and he's right down the street from you, and he's real big into all this health stuff. He was a wrestler in college. He was a Marine. He was a Marine. He is a Marine, because once we know he's a Marine, and was a beach wrestling champion, and he lives right down the street from you, and he's on here. Man, I'd love to meet him and learn about all this stuff. So Butch Hildebrand, Frank Jasper, get together. He's right down the street from you, and he would love to meet you. And I only have 2 more questions for you. I've got I know there's infections that come in wrestling. Sometimes you get these disease, these little infections and stuff, and it causes you not to wrestle. You have a few things that may be able to fight that for the wrestlers. You have the Collodia Silver or the Manos. Did I say that right?
Well, Manos is for bladder issues, whereas the other one, the colloidal silver, is a great product just to have. Either you take it internally or you can use it topically. But I think that the main thing is you want to make sure you have a great disinfectant that you're using often on the mats. Now with what's going on with COVID-19, it's going to, like, you're going to have to take that up a next level. Like I was at the state tournament in California this year for the first time, and there's a company called Mat Clean that I was connected with when I went there, and they just had these mats that you want to step on before you climb, walk out onto the mat, that are kind of sticky, that will get everything off the bottom of the shoes, because people walk around, then they walk out onto the mat, and so they're carrying wherever they went in the bathroom. What do you think the floor like is in the bathroom? So they have those. They need to place those at every mat, and they're going to have to probably clean the mats after every match. They're probably going to have to make sure that everybody that comes in, goes out, their temperatures are taken. They're going to have hand sanitizer. So when you finish that match, you sanitize before you go on, you sanitize after you come off. And the key really is to keep your immune system strong, and to keep those preservatives, the trans fats out of the diet. There was a woman that came on Bill Maher's show, and she really was on this. Anything, if you're having any trans fats in your system, this is part of the underlying factors that make people a lot more sick. If they get exposed to this, they will get sick, and some of them then will pass because their systems are too full of toxins already. So when their body gets sick and they're challenged, and the virus creates a solvent effect in the system, and their body then tries to detox, well, then you've got all those toxins to detox, and that's what's causing a lot of coagulation and blockage of lungs and blockage of lymphatics. And so we want to make sure that you're cleaning up your diet. You want to make sure you're hydrating, you're sleeping, you're eating the right nutrition. And then, you want to try some topicals. You want to make sure the mats are clean. You want to make sure, you're being smart about how you're handling your business. Make sure you're covered. If you're around people you don't know where they've been, social distancing is important right now. We just have seen this big uptick. And so it's because people got really tired after being sequestered for a long time. They came out, started to intermingle again, and it's just right back up. So it's up to us. It's our choices. And so what I'm saying is, be smart, take your nutrients, make sure you have magnesium, zinc, vitamin C, vitamin D, I also am a big fan of probiotics to keep because that's where 60 to 80% of your immune system comes from, is your gut, your microbiome. So you want to have that supported. That's it. You got to take care of your business and then just be very smart about where you are and who you interact with.
That's awesome. And for my buddy Shane McCall out there, I've got this last question for you. Who wins the rematch, Swain or Shute?
Buddy, you have to ask. Come on. Shoot. It's Shute, and it'll be Shute. What can I say?
Yeah, I love it. And hey, that's Brian Shute. That's Frank Jasper. He's going to post all his stuff about Ahsani on there. Obviously, it's very good stuff. He's got a bunch of cool things on there. And I wanted to talk about his products so you guys can all learn about his products. Great stuff. And I'm so happy I got a chance to meet you, sir. Thank you so much. I hope one day we cross paths and I get to meet you in real life.
Absolutely.
And
looking
that'll be
forward
fun.
to that day.
Yeah, and then Butch Hildebrand right down the street. I'm sure he'll come and hit you up, so that'll be good. And please put all your stuff on the links because people are asking. And jump into my group, interact. I don't know if you want to give away some signed photos or whatever when you're in there. Have at it, have fun, do your thing. Thank you so much for coming on, and it's just an absolute honor. Thank you.
Hey, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for everything you're doing. You know, it's important to, I know these times we can't wrestle. Let's keep the talk alive. We're in a very big growth phase right now with wrestling. Women's is up, like, I want to say 27%. And also the men is growing as well. And this is, you know, COVID-19 is going to put a damper on it. So the fact that you're having these conversations and people are talking about wrestling and staying excited about wrestling and just looking forward to wrestling. So 2 thumbs up, man. Way to go.
Thank you, sir. And you have a great day.